The story of that very first Easter Sunday morning, it's a big day. It's a big day, and I need some help. There are three key characters in this story. So can I have three helpers? There's one. Yeah, thank you very much. You come up and help me. That's the back. Grab me that blanket. Thank you very much. We've got a blanket here. Thank you, Caroline. Good. Well done, Jack. Let's hear it for Jack. He's carrying a table. Yes. Well done. Okay, Logan, come over this side for me. Here we are. That's it, Jack. Put that there. Let's bring it back. That may look like a table to you, but actually, it's a tomb. It is a tomb that is hewn in solid rock. And this, let's just pull that down a little bit. Pull that down a little bit. There we are. That is a solid rock hewn tomb with a massive stone across the front of it. Right, come over here, team. My acting team on this side. Okay, whenever you're ready, Rebecca, we're all ears. Let's hear the story of that very first Easter Sunday.
So we're reading from John 20, verse 1. The empty tomb. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb.
Hold it there, Rebecca. Here she is, Mary Magdalene. There you are. I tell you what, if you start by that line there, Mary, go on, down you go. Okay, and you're coming to the tomb. Mary. Logan, you're not on yet. Come over here. Okay, come over here with Jack. There we are. Okay, right, can you start again, please, Rebecca?
Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance.
There it goes. It's gone.
So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple.
Okay, you guys actually are back there. There we are. Back where she was. A little bit further, actually. There we are. Simon Peter is Logan, and Jack is the other disciple. Okay. Okay, let's have that bit again, Rebecca.
So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him."
Good, that's what she said. So you get that? Okay, carry on.
So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running.
Wait, running in slow motion.
But the other disciple ran... Oh, where am I?
Yeah. So Simon Peter's ahead.
But the other disciple outran Peter.
Then, the other disciple came through.
And reached the tomb first.
Well done, other disciple.
He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb.
There he goes.
He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside.
Oh, be careful of my tomb. All right?
He saw and believed. They still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Then the disciples went back to where they were staying.
Back you go. Back you go. There we go. And you have to look amazed and believing. There we go. Well done. Let's hear it for the disciples. Well done. Back you go. Not you, Mary. Mary, you're still here. Look at everyone.
Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying.
You've got to be crying. There we are.
This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. Let's hear it for Mary Magdalene. Wasn't she brilliant? Well done. Well done. That was an amazing reading and an amazing level of detail in that story about exactly what happened and the grave clothes and the linen and what they saw and how they believed. And Mary was there. She saw that the tomb was empty, but she hadn't seen Jesus. And she was overcome. She was so upset. She was weeping. I wonder why she was weeping. It was all just such a shock. We don't know what she was expecting. I wonder what she was really feeling on that morning. Let's hear from Mary about what was really going on.
It was dark. No, I mean really dark. And not just because it was early, but it was a darkness that I'd never known before. A darkness that didn't just surround you, but crept into your soul and smothered it. I'd known dark times before. Of course I had. I remember, although not very clearly, those days of possession, the days when I didn't know what I was doing, what I was saying, where I was going, who I was. But then that had changed. He spoke, and at his word, the darkness lifted. My soul, he emptied my soul, and the darkness was gone, the shadow was gone, and I was a new woman. A new life had started, a life of adventure and discovery, a life where who I am was linked with who he is. And for the first time, the very first time, I knew that life had a meaning, a purpose. Well, the Galilean countryside had never seemed so green, and the lake never so blue. And the meals we all shared, there was fun and seriousness and joy and laughter, and the food, well, even the bread tasted better, fresher, lighter. And he spoke words of power and authority, not always easy words, not always comforting words. They burned in your heart and in your soul, and you knew, I knew, that I would never be the same again. And so we came to Jerusalem. Well, you should have seen the crowds, people from Bethsaida, Capernaum, everywhere in Galilee. Crowds of people singing for joy as he entered the city on a donkey. Hosanna! Blessed is the King of Israel. We knew this was big. We knew that things were about to change, and change forever. I mean, how couldn't they? We had heard him speak, and we were changed. Jerusalem would hear him speak, and it would change. The world would change. Well, there was no end to what we thought was about to happen. The next few days went by in a blur of anticipation and excitement. And then night fell, and the soldiers came. And we watched Mary, his mother, and her sister and others. We watched hopeless, helpless, as he was crucified. And we stood there and we watched, and we could do nothing. I mean, where was Peter and Matthew and the others? Where were they? Only John stayed nearby. And in all of that pain and rejection and suffering, Jesus spoke. He spoke words of comfort to his mother, words of love and concern as he hung there, dying. And then he died. In the darkness, he died. And as he died, he spoke, "It is finished." Well, I know the sun came out later, but it was dark inside as Mary and I went with Joseph and Nicodemus to the tomb. And we watched as they laid him on the shelf of rock, as they rolled the stone across the entrance, as the light went out forever. 3 days go by, 3 days of sorrow and anguish and anger. Oh yes, anger. And 3 days of pain and a bottomless pit of despair. Days of fear and nights with just no rest. And then on the third day, I find myself on the path in the garden, walking to the tomb. And in the slowly breaking dawn, I see the tomb. I don't know, what am I doing there? Why? Where else could I be? And I see the tomb, but there's something wrong. Well, the stone's gone. Well, it's the right tomb. I know it's the right tomb. So something dreadful must have happened. So I run to Peter, to the others, and two of them run off to the tomb, and I can hardly move for fear and confusion. So I get there later than them, and Peter says the tomb is empty, and the burial cloth is just lying there. Well, what's that supposed to mean? And then they walk away. They go home. They leave the tomb. They leave me, and they go home. What am I going to do? What had happened? And in that moment of emptiness and isolation, I wept. In the dark quiet of my soul, my heart just broke, and I could do nothing else. I wept for lost hope, for broken dreams, for him, for me. Oh yes, of course it must have been for me. Never had I felt so alone. And then I looked up, and something made me go over to the tomb. And trembling, I looked inside, and there were two men there. Where had they come from? And they asked me, "Why are you crying?" Well, why was I crying? Because my Lord has gone, and I don't know where he is. That's why I'm crying. And then I turned, and there was another man there. Oh, the gardener, I thought. Well, perhaps he had moved Jesus' body. So I asked him. And then he spoke. And never has one word meant so much. He spoke. A voice of love and comfort, of majesty and power. He spoke. Mary. Never had my name meant something. And it meant something more than the ordinary, the normal, the physical. And the sun rose. It rose in glorious red and yellow and orange. It rose in my heart, and it banished the darkness. It flooded my soul with brilliant white light that felt so real, so heavy, that I could almost touch it. This was Jesus, not dead. Oh no, not by any means, but alive. My Lord had returned. Oh, I wanted to sing, I wanted to shout, I wanted to scream for joy and wonder. I don't know what I wanted to do, but the sheer thrill of the moment just took my breath away. Here was Jesus, more real than I had known before. Oh, it was amazing. He spoke, and I wanted to sing. And so I speak. I shout, Jesus is alive! I have seen my Lord!
Shall we stand if we're able to? Mary had seen the Lord. She wanted to sing. She wanted to shout. How can we respond but in praise and thanks for the amazing miracle of the resurrection? How Mary's life changed on that day, in that moment, as Faith so brilliantly portrayed that profound transformation, that amazing journey that she'd been on over those 3 years with Jesus, and then she hit absolute rock bottom. She was utterly, utterly devastated by the death of Jesus, and then even more broken and confused and concerned when the body wasn't there and the tomb was empty, and she thought, has this grave been decimated? Has the body been stolen? Has there been some horrible crime committed? Even though she knew Jesus, she was utterly, utterly lost in that moment. And then one word from Jesus. He said her name, Mary. And she knew it was him. She knew it was Jesus. And she knew he was alive. She didn't understand it. She couldn't explain it. But she knew it was him. Even though she'd seen him hanging on the cross, dying the most painful death, she'd seen his body being taken down, his lifeless body being laid in the tomb. Jesus was alive. She was so devastated, and then in a moment, she was overjoyed. She was overjoyed, and she ran back to the disciples. And all she said is, I've seen the Lord. I have seen the Lord. He's alive. He's alive. She knew it. Even though Jesus did then leave, only a few weeks later, he ascended into heaven, and she never saw him again in the flesh. Even though that she had to spend the whole of the rest of her life facing persecution like the rest of the early church, facing rejection, facing animosity, losing the comfort of life. She was under all kinds of pressure to keep going in her faith, even though there was so much opposition, even though she never saw Jesus again. She was full of hope. She was so strong. She was so faithful. She never gave up. She knew. And you know what? This is the most compelling evidence for the resurrection. You may be sitting here today thinking, well, this is an amazing story. Jesus crucified, and then on the third day, he rises from the dead, and he's alive. And he goes around telling people that he's been raised again, that God has defeated death, that if you put your hope in him, you can pass through death as well, that he offers eternal life to anyone who turns to Jesus and gives their life to him. And you think, wow, that's a lovely story. But I mean, come on. A dead body being raised to life. You know, there's stories all over the world of miracles and people doing incredible things. But a dead body does not do a miracle. And a dead body doesn't do the greatest miracle of all, which is literally raise itself from the dead to life. This is just beyond comprehension. I'm sorry, this is too far-fetched. I can't believe, what is the actual evidence that Jesus rose from the dead? And actually, there's, I think, completely compelling historical evidence. Jesus was executed as a criminal. He was a threat to society. He was a threat to the Jewish authorities. He was a threat to the Romans. They wanted to get rid of him. They had a very sophisticated and well-developed methodology for executing criminals. They were really good at it. Jesus was executed on the cross. There can be no doubt. And yet some people say, oh no, he just swooned. He just fell asleep. He fainted and then woke up and pushed the tombstone away and ran away. People actually think that's how we explain this. I mean, that's the most far-fetched. You've got to have a lot more faith to believe that than to believe that he actually rose from the dead. Then other people say, well, the disciples came. They stole the body. In fact, that's even the explanation given in the Bible that the authorities came up with. They stole the body. They took the body away, and then they claimed that Jesus had been raised from the dead. Apart from the fact that there was a Roman guard on the tomb that would have reported anything like that and would have defended the tomb with their lives. But apart from that, do we really think that Jesus' followers knew that he hadn't been raised from the dead. They went out proclaiming, like Mary, he's alive. I've seen the Lord. Jesus has defeated death. Jesus is alive. They went out telling people that Jesus was alive. And what did it cost them? It cost them everything. The majority of those early followers of Christ were persecuted and executed. Now, people will die for all kinds of things. People believe some crazy things. People will be utterly, utterly committed to a cause, and they will give their lives for a cause that they believe in. But who will give their life for a lie? How many people will actually stand up in court and not deny their faith and keep believing and keep proclaiming the resurrection of Jesus, even to the point of death, simply to save face? Simply because, well, we don't want to admit that actually we made the whole thing up. And that across the board, they kept the line. They absolutely stood by their belief that Jesus Christ had been raised from the dead. Other people say, oh, the whole thing was, a hallucination. I mean, these people were so caught up with the whole thing of Jesus being the Messiah that, they just wanted to believe it. Jesus had predicted that he'd rise from the dead. They just wanted so much to believe that Jesus rose from the dead that they just thought they saw him alive. And they went out and told people, he's alive, he's alive. We've had a hallucination. We've literally seen Jesus. Well, if that had happened, how easy would it be for the authorities who wanted to squash this movement, who wanted to absolutely stamp out the Christian faith? They just go to the tomb, roll the stone away, pull the body out and say, yeah, you've seen him alive, have you? Well, who's this then? A dead body. But there was no body. The absence of the body of Jesus is the great conundrum in the explanation, any other explanation of what happened on that first Easter Sunday, except that Jesus rose from the dead. Nobody can explain what happened to the body. There's no body. There is no dead body of Jesus, which would have dispelled and totally squashed any rumor, any claim that Jesus was alive. Yet they couldn't produce a body. All those authorities, these powerless disciples, the poor, weak, persecuted, confused. And that's the other thing, is they didn't believe it. The disciples themselves didn't believe it. All the narratives say they were confused. Like Mary, she came to the tomb. She didn't come to the tomb going, I know he's alive. I know Jesus has risen from the dead. I'm just going to make sure. She was they'd seen him die. They were ordinary people. You see someone die, you don't just go, well, don't worry, 3 days, it's all going to come good. They were devastated. There was no body. They had no hope. And then they saw the Lord. They saw the Lord. And it totally transformed everything for each one of them. But all that historical evidence, and I'm touching on it, is actually less than the most compelling evidence for the resurrection, which is the changed lives of people who meet Jesus. Dead people don't change people's lives. Dead people don't transform people and set them free and give them purpose and renew their whole life and vision. Dead people don't give people new life. But Jesus gave Mary new life. He gave his disciples new life. He gave all his early followers new life, even those who didn't see him. People started to meet Jesus and encounter Jesus, most notably, of course, St. Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament and had more influence on the early church, probably more influence on the whole of society and the whole of history than anyone else except for Jesus himself. Paul, he never saw Jesus in the flesh. He just met the Lord after he descended into heaven. He had a vision of him. So many people have encountered Jesus. Yes, some in dramatic visions, like Paul's conversion. Others in just personal ways, just a sense of his presence, just understanding Jesus is real. I'm just going to read you three quick stories, two of which you'll hear a bit more tonight. Stuart, I'm stealing just a little bit of your thunder because it's baptisms tonight. And we are going to hear testimonies tonight of people who have met the Lord and their lives have changed. Because people who meet Jesus are transformed. People who meet Jesus, like Mary Magdalene on that first Sunday, are changed and transformed. Here's what one person said. This is just from a few weeks ago, someone who's been on our most recent Alpha course. I suffered a lot in childhood. I was filled with anger and bitterness because of all I'd gone through. I was so hurt and angry with those who'd hurt me. I made a lot of bad choices in my life. I've hurt myself and I've hurt others. But since coming here and meeting you people over the last few weeks, I've chosen to forgive those who hurt me, because that's what Jesus tells us to do. And as we sung a worship song a few weeks ago, I felt God's love pouring into me. And I just knew that I had been forgiven for all the wrong that I've done. I feel free. I have now a new family. And I'm not even afraid to die, this person said. Had a fear of death all their life. I'm not even afraid to die anymore because I know I will be with Jesus forever. That's somebody meeting Jesus and their life being transformed, because Jesus is alive. Another person said, I've struggled with addiction and mental health problems for so many years. I saw an Alpha poster in the toilet of this church, even though I've never been to a service here, and I just knew I had to come. Jesus has spoken to me in the last few years and destroy our lives. But I've learned that through baptism, my old self dies and I am cleansed and renewed, and now I can live a new life. That's what the Bible says about baptism. If you come back tonight, the pool's over there, you will see people go into the water. They go right under, and the water closes up over the top of them. And Paul says in Romans chapter 6, he says, we have been baptized into Christ's death. We have been, through baptism, buried with Christ. It means my life with Jesus is over. My life without Jesus, is over, is finished. You go under the water. Maybe we should do a proper job, just hold them down there for about 20 minutes, because we're symbolizing death, the end, life without Christ, finished. All the past, all the regret, all the shame, all the guilt, all the fear, all the anger, all the things, the anxiety, the depression, all that holds us back, all the ways that the enemy oppresses us and convinces us of lies and deception and self-loathing and resentment and unforgiveness, and it dies. The old self goes under the water, and the waters cover over, and it's death. Because the death of Jesus becomes my death. This is what Jesus does for us. He doesn't just die for us in our place. He actually joins us with him so that his death is my death. And we're buried with Christ, united with him in his death, so that, Romans chapter 6 says, so that up we come. We can live a new life. We can live his risen life. That's what these people are talking about. I learned that through baptism, my old self dies, I'm cleansed and renewed, and I can now live a new life. And today, I belong to a new family, the church, and today I'm grateful and filled with hope. The shame, the anger, the regret, the guilt is finished. And today, I'm filled with hope and a new life. Here's another one. My life seemed complete from the outside, but deep down something was missing. I suffered with anxiety and anger. I'd beat myself up every day with the memories of things I wish I hadn't done or said, and things that I couldn't forgive other people for. But all that changed when I prayed a simple prayer. I was at home, and I read a prayer asking for forgiveness that's in the Alpha book. I've never asked for forgiveness before, and I felt really exposed and raw. But I felt something new. I felt peace for the first time, respite from the grief and the turmoil of anxiety. I'd experienced the forgiveness and love of Jesus, and today I feel reborn. Reborn. The old is gone, and the new has come. That's the evidence for the resurrection, that Jesus is alive and is changing lives today. He's setting the captives free, and he's giving us new life and what the Bible calls a living hope. A living hope. Now, it doesn't mean that life gets perfect, that all our problems go away. Anyone here who's been following Jesus for a while knows. In fact, Jesus promises. This is one of the promises we don't sort of, hold up and bang on about too much in church. Jesus promises you will have trouble in this life. It's a promise. This life is full of trouble. This life is fallen. This world is broken. The enemy is still active. There are all kinds of trials and tribulations. We know this life is full of trouble. But Jesus says, take heart, because I have overcome this life. I have overcome the world in his resurrection. He has defeated death. He has overcome the power of the enemy. He has brought forgiveness from sin and freedom from the past. Jesus rises to give us new life. His life. His life is what we live now. Paul says, I no longer live. I've been crucified with Christ. I died his death, and now I am living the life I live, he says. I live by faith in the Son of God. The life I live is his risen life now. Not my life, his life. What these people are feeling, the love, the freedom, the joy, the power, it's his. It's not ours. Our life is the guilt and the sin and the regret. His life is the new life, eternal life, full of hope. No matter what we're up against, Jesus shows us his life of hope, even going to the cross. Even dying on the cross, Jesus didn't give up his hope because God raised him. That's the kind of hope that we can live with now because it's his hope. The love that Jesus has. Even dying on the cross, he extends love and compassion to his mother, to those around him. He extends forgiveness to those who are banging the nails into his hands. That's the kind of love and grace and forgiveness we can have now because we live his risen life. Not our love. It runs out so quickly, but his love. His power that healed the sick, raised the dead, and that even raised Jesus from the dead is the kind of power that is available to us now. Not our power, but his risen life, his power. This is what the life of faith is. Take hold of all that is yours in Christ. His risen life. Every day. You've got to take hold of it. Believe it. Stand on it. Claim it. Say, that's my life. I'm living his life now. I'm not going back where I came from. I'm living his risen life. You've got to make that choice and take hold of his life every day. Now, if you're here today, like Gareth said, you're a visitor, you're a friend, you've been invited along, you think, oh my goodness, this is a bit more as I was expecting. What are they talking about? come to Alpha. Come and do this next Alpha. Starts on the 6th of May. Just come to the first one. See what the people are like. Gareth's leading it. Yes, he's a bit weird. I know, it's true. But once you get to know him, he's all right, you know? And no, lovely people just want to walk alongside, journey together and explore. Could it really be true? Could what I've been talking about be true? Could Jesus really be alive? Could he really have the power to change lives today? If it could be true, isn't it worth a few Tuesday nights to explore that? Or, you know, some of you young people, isn't it time to get along to youth on a Wednesday night, to come on a Sunday morning, to meet the others, to hear how Jesus is changing lives today? Because we believe that Jesus is alive and he's changing lives today.